A very warm welcome to So This is Thailand. I'm Valerie Mackenzie, Sawadee ka.
I'm Johan Wiwanchalao, Swadee krap.
And I'm Tapani Manawet, สวัสดีค่ะ
You know, I always believe that medical tourism is a great industry, and certainly it is here in Thailand. But one thing I've noticed over the last little while, that the people coming in from the Middle East are coming over a longer period. So that means business must be really escalating. Normally, in the period of July, August, when it's so hot in the Middle East, that's when most of the medical tourist people come from that area. But now, coming up to September, end of September, there's still lots of people here. So I don't know how it's all happening, but it must be fantastic business. The income coming from this industry must be enormous.
Well, I think the services are becoming better as well. You see a lot of interpreters and hospitals that are geared towards a certain group of people. And you walk in, it looks like a hotel.
Well, it does, and it also looks as though, you know, we talked yesterday about the United Nations, you're in the United Nations. I think the other thing too is the fact that you talk about interpreters. I mean, I saw the other day someone coming in and they were from Nepal and there was somebody speaking their language. I mean, that's really exceptional.
And
Had the same
Japanese
experience when you walk into the hospital? How do you feel being a Thai? And then there's all these other nationalities and you think this service is really for me.
You have to fend for yourself. If you're Thai, you're left to your own devices.
I think, you know, it follows a lot of the stories that we were looking at before about how there's a huge boom in terms of the amount of income that our medical tourism is having here in Thailand. All the new services, especially cosmetics, are becoming very big hit here in the country. And the fact that, like Tara said, you know, all these hospitals have really specialized services. They cater to the expats, so why not? It's cheaper to have the services done here, all the procedures. It's actually cheaper to have them done here, including the flight here and your stay, so why not?
And the quality is really second to none, so it's interesting to see, but just really curious as to how the Middle East, those people from the UAEs, Bahrain, Oman, have actually extended their period even longer. But maybe it's certainly good for us, and it means that we're not so cluttered in the hospitals at a given time. Tari, I believe you've got the talk of the town, the top story.
Yes, and the first item up for discussion today is the ever-growing popularity of Japanese food in Thailand. Now, they have a dedicated research center over there in Japan, and they have found that Japanese restaurants account for 8.3% of all restaurants in Bangkok, coming second to only Thai cuisine. Now, the average cost of living has been rising. It rose, in fact, 30% from 5 years ago, therefore making Japanese food more affordable to many Thai people. And it also, as you've become more familiar with it, you kind of tend to crave it more and want to go back for more. It's also becoming a trend where it's hip and trendy, and people are looking for more authentic Japanese cuisine.
Well, I think it's, you see actually a lot of Japanese lifestyle malls being built as well, where you have all the different cuisines. And the fact that, I think it's probably easier to find a Japanese restaurant than it is any other
even a Thai restaurant sometimes, exactly. But I think the other thing too is that when you actually go to a buffet at one of the hotels, or when you go to the hotels, the restaurants themselves, the Japanese restaurants, people have sushi, sashimi. Then they go back and they have sushi and sashimi. Then they go back again before they actually get to the meal. So it's healthy food. It's not fattening food. It tastes good. And I think people are more conscious also about what they eat, what they do, and how they, need to be more healthy.
Yeah, there is a big craze for seaweed.
Yes.
When it's been proven that it makes you, kind of live longer and has weight loss effects. But, there was a time when the second most dominant cuisine was Italian.
That's
Italian
true.
food. Do you remember that?
But it has slipped back a bit, I think, and I think it's because of the health conscious
Yeah,
of
now
us.
Japanese food is overtaking that.
What's your favourite Japanese food? It all.
I like sashimi.
You had to come.
I do.
Now, Johan has a particularly interesting story. We want you to just sit and listen, because we just gave this story to him because it's such a special story.
Well, it seems I always get stuck with the really fun stories, as it were. And the talk of the town is, well, if you've been here in the country, I always begin my stories like this. If you've been here at any time, you know that Thais have a particular obsession with fair skin. And you can see through all the commercials and all the products out there to help whiten skin are everywhere. In fact, that the whitening has extended from the top of the body down to the bottom of the body. And what I might say is, in their terms, intimate toiletry that has a whitening benefit. And this is geared towards all the female consumers out there who want their lady parts to be as white as the skin on their face. Now, as humorous as it is, it's actually gotten very popular here in Thailand. The whitening products just seem to continue, which is quite surprising because if you look at similar products in India, where there was also another big push for whitening, this type of product, this intimate whitening product, actually got a big negative response from the public. So very surprised to see that very much embraced here in Thailand, and they expect it to expand. And even, for all the guys watching out there thinking, well, what about me? What about my parts? Yeah, don't worry, they're coming down the line.
I just can't believe what we're hearing. I mean, the mind boggles. I mean, it's like, it might be white, but that's not possible. You can't say you don't hear it first on. So this is Thailand.
Do you know what? And I would kind of wager as well that actually it doesn't work because, as you know, the skin has many, many layers. And
this is going to get too deep.
You can't penetrate that deeply into your DNA to change the way. I'm just making an educated conjecture. It doesn't work. And
okay, well, that was very interesting. Moving right along.
Right.
Tara, you're on.
Well, speaking of, I don't know,
Dermis?
nature.
The dermis?
Nature. The Thai National Park officials are reintroducing tamed elephants into the wild. This is taking place in national parks across the country, but the one in particular that we're discussing today is in Sakonnakhon and Kalasin. Now, well, it says in here that the prices of elephants have been rising to exorbitant levels, and this is leading to people going into the wild and capturing animals in order to train them and domesticate them. So national park officials are trying to counter this very, very heavily. This is adding a lot to the work that they do because they get calls and reports from villagers saying that there are poachers who are being spotted around national parks, and they have a very wide area to cover, around 160,000 acres or 400,000 rai. Over the past years, they've managed to successfully return 6 female elephants to the wild and integrated them into the wildlife.
Yeah. It's a good start. We've got to start somewhere. I think it's great.
Well, the fact that they're saying there's exorbitant prices, it's not easy to. I'm sure it's easy to find a one-ton animal, but what do you do once you've got the elephant by the tail, so to speak?
Well, exactly. No, I think it's great. So if we can get more than 6 out there, if we can actually keep growing that's going to be superb for the animals and superb for the environment, superb for us all.
Absolutely. Well, coming up last on the list for Talk of the Town is the airport. And it's actually with Thai Airways and what will be 6 new A380s joining the fleet. Now, we already covered the story when they got the first one. There are 5 more down the list, which means better flights for you to more destinations. In fact, they're based out of Bangkok going to Hong Kong, Singapore. They'll be extending it into the European route as well, going into Germany. So, they're looking at these new fleet of aircraft to be able to increase passenger load by at least 30%. And anyone who's flown on one of the new A380s, fabulous. I mean, so much more room. And you're talking about, well, it's a double-decker.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It is. I think that they've done a great job. We might have been waiting a long time for Thai Airways to bring them to us, but when you actually experience one, they're very special. And I think it'll be interesting. They've actually confirmed the routes now, have they?
The initial ones, because they're about to receive their first shipment, not all 5 at once, but they'll get a couple coming up very soon, actually within this month. And then the Asian routes will begin.
Because the airline industry, as we all know, is such a competitive industry. Very hard to compete with those carriers from the Middle East. We talk about the Qatars, we talk about the Emirates, the Etihads. They've got so much money that they can spend. So it's nice to see when our local carrier can actually spend a bit and actually compete in terms of the legroom, in terms of the seating, and actually buying these particular aircraft. So well done.
Well, the curious thing is the fact that they actually admit that they know that in recent news. You know, the airline's kind of gotten a bad rep in terms of being kind of a high-end airline. Prices, you know, ticket prices which exceed a lot of other national carriers within the region. So they know that, well, we got a new fleet of aircraft, but they have to still stay competitive and reduce some of those seat prices.
I think also the fact that we're able to see the airlines now looking at their pricing structures out of here, it seems to be a lot more competitive than it ever has been. Of course, we always have to pay the taxes on top, which is a bit of a nuisance, but got to keep the government happy, got to keep us all alive. We're going to go now to a story that I did recently, and Miss Saigon is about to come to Thailand. Interesting because it's going to be in Thai, so you can imagine how much effort has been put in by Kumboy to actually get this performance going. It's starting very soon, and we'd now like to share that interview with you. We went behind the scenes, we went to rehearsals.